Wow. Hello, gorgeous people. My name is Sive. You have found your way to my channel, Stories in Sive. I talk about books and other shenanigans. And I am joining you from a new location, a new setting. If you are not new here and are a returning viewer, hi, thank you so much. This is the first video I'm filming in my new home library, which I put some time and energy with the help of some lovely gentlemen in my life. Thank you, Dad. Thank you to my husband, Jared, for helping me get this set up. I could not have done it without them. And in the spirit of being surrounded by my library, I am going to give you an update on how my physical TBR is going. For those of you who do not know, around 5 months ago, I posted a video where I was like, I'm doing a physical TBR challenge, trying to read down my TBR to 0 in 3 months. I didn't succeed, but it was a great exercise. I actually did reduce my physical TBR by a lot, and in that video I mentioned that I wanted a TBR of 5 ever-rotating books and that I would be happy with that. So here I am to introduce you to the girls. This is my physical TBR right now. By the end of March, I had read so much, and I had 3 final books on my physical TBR to finish in 18 days. I ran the challenge for 3 months, like I said, from January 18th to April 18th. And I got halfway through a book that I will talk about and just felt so burnt out by the fantasy sci-fi genre that I reverted into some Kindle loans, and I read some romances, whatever. And I came away from not completing the TBR, but with 3 books. In that moment, I still had hope that I would finish the physical TBR, but in the spirit of wanting to continue to enjoy reading and not put myself in a reading slump, I started to just mood read through the month of April, and before I know it, 18th was upon me. So I didn't complete the TBR. However, I reduced it by a lot. I reduced it from maybe like 18 books to 3. And I learned about myself that as much as I love lists and creating a TBR, I need to have the freedom to be able to mood read in order to not put myself in a book slump and just enjoy reading for what it's meant to be, which is a fun and entertaining hobby. I moved forward with an attitude towards my physical TBR of the 5 ever-rotating books. However, I want to put intentional thought into purchasing books in genres that are not already on my physical TBR. So if I've got a horror and I've got a fantasy, let's not purchase another sequel or another thriller, but to diversify the genres that I own and have spent my own money on. In order for a book to be on my physical TBR, it has to be physical, and I have to have bought it with my own money, and that's an important distinction to make. I have books on this TBR. I believe I have 3 books and then 1 trilogy totaling 6 books that people have let me borrow because they really want me to read them, because people in my life know I love to read. So I'm going to show you first the books that are on my physical TBR but I have not purchased. I'm going to go through these relatively quickly. I'm not going to give you a whole breakdown of the plot. I'm just going to tell you and then give you genres. So my lovely friend has let me borrow her gorgeous trilogy of Once Upon a Broken Heart. So this is a YA trilogy by Stephanie Garber. As you can see, it's a fantasy, it's got romance, and frankly, these are the most stunning books. I hate the US copies. And before I kind of put a monetary investment in the physical copies, I asked her if I could read the first one of hers, and she has lovingly loaned me all 3 of them. And I have not started it. Abigail, if you are watching, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, sweetie. The other 3 books that people have given me are actually from my wonderful sister-in-law. So Amber gave me Empire the Vampire, which she read and basically told me that I had to read it. I have not been in a fantasy mood, so I have not picked this up. This is adult, it's gothic, it's meant to be very grim, dark, and of course, vampiric. So I think it is gonna be a little gory, a little gruesome, and this is just a super cool copy. It's got illustrations in it, and of course, the cover is stunning. So next I have The School for Good Mothers, and this is by Jessamine Chan. Holy smokes, I read the first chapter of this and it got right into it. Literary dystopian has been a genre that has always just been really interesting to me. given that I adored when I was growing up the Hunger Games and Divergent, like so many of us adored the Maze Runner movie, and I read this year Chain Gang All-Stars, which is a adult dystopian, very scary, near dystopian sci-fi book. And when I told Amber about it, she recommended me read this. Very intense first chapter, and I am excited to read it. This is more close to the top of my list of what I'll be reading soon. And lastly, I have The Kingdom, the Power, and the Glory by Tim Alberta, and this is a nonfiction. This is by a gentleman who has his hand kind of in a church and then his hand in like the political kind of climate, and I believe it's an analysis on the relationship between the evangelical church and the Republican Party. The way she spoke about it was just like, this is something that I want to learn about, and I think he gives a critical voice and an analysis and a lot of research into it. So, okay, moving on. Now, my friends, we are on to the books that I have physically purchased with my own money. Do we find it coincidental that they all have black spines? Yes or no? Be honest. Now, do you guys remember that I just told you I wanted books on my TBR to be diverse in genre, and that I also wasn't that into fantasy? Guess what my first two books are? Fantasy sequels. Let's talk about The Elephant in the Room. This is the book I got halfway through when I was doing my physical TBR challenge. This is Lachlan's by Robert Jackson Bennett. It's the third and final book in the Foundry Side trilogy, a series that I have given book 1 and book 2 both 5 stars to. I was floored when I was reading this, and I was not in the mood at all. It was weirdly paced, and when I had the time to read in the evening, I didn't have the brain power, and so I have soft DNF'd this book halfway through, as you can see. There is no way I'm not finishing the trilogy. I need to know what happens, but for now, this is the first book on my physical TBR. Next up, we have He Who Drowned the World by Shelley Parker Chan. This is a historical fantasy and a book, again, a sequel to a book I gave 5 stars. This is a duology, and so it's one book, one more book, and I'm done. Oh my gosh, it was about war and betrayal and love and like transformation, and it had a slight speculative element, even though it is historical. It's really rooted in real history. It was fascinating. The first one just took my breath away. So I did find this and purchased this because I saw it on sale, and I want to be able to give myself a little bit of leeway with that, because even though I'm not planning on picking this up anytime soon, I mean, it was literally like 50% off, and I just shouldn't say no to a deal like that, you know? Next up, I have Gothicana by Rue Nix, I think is how you say this person's name. This is a academic, like, romance, fantasy romance. Hi, Bean. I figured he'd join us at some point. Would you like to say hello to the people? Wow, I'm in the middle of this book right now. I'm a little over halfway, maybe 60%, and I am enjoying this. This is a like dark romance, and I will not say that this is the best writing ever, but the plot and the murder mystery and the conspiracy behind this seemingly haunted school is interesting enough for me to kind of set aside my critical like eye on the writing. I am enjoying it, and I'll finish this soon. Last but not least is the only book on here that is not necessarily a fantasy, and that is Mary by Nat Cassidy. This is a debut novel. I've heard good things about it. I read the back and read the synopsis of this, and it just seems to be like a coming of age story in the grossest way possible, and a weird like transformation female rage horror about a female character who is like not your typical like, oh, she's in her 20s and 30s trying to figure it out. I think this woman is in her 50s or 60s, and she's an older main character, which is something you don't really see too much of. So I'm excited to give this a try. I've heard great things. It's a wonderful floppy paperback that I found for $6. So that's everything that I wanted to share. I am super happy with how the physical TBR challenge went, even though I didn't necessarily complete it in the way that I wanted. I plan on keeping my physical TBR at 5 books or under. Hope you guys are doing well and enjoying your summer. I hope to see you very soon, and I'm looking forward to filming more videos in my lovely new setup. If you have a physical TBR goal this year or a challenge that you're doing, please shout out down below. I'd love to know. And how's it going? Be honest. Anyways, you guys, thank you so much for watching, and if you would like to subscribe and have not yet, please do so. I would love to have you, and other than that, have a great rest of your day. I will see you in the next video. Bye.